Dave Sharma has pulled off a shock pre-selection victory to fill Marise Payne's vacated New South Wales coalition seat in the Senate. Kenny Heatley is life risk in Bondi, Dave Sharma's former seat of Wentworth. He's still in the seat, but just not the member there anymore. But Kenny, he beat the running favourite, former New South Wales Government Minister Andrew Constance.
Yes, and not great news for the federal political ambitions of Andrew Constance. This latest defeat comes just 6 months after Maria Kovacic beat him to a vacated Senate seat spot following the death of Jim Molan. And it's a surprise win because Dave Sharma is a part of the moderate faction, and the moderates were backing Andrew Constance. But it turned out on the day that a lot of the Conservative vote flowed towards Dave Sharma. The frontrunner for the Conservatives was former Morrison Minister Zej Zelja, who also had the backing of former Prime Minister Tony Abbott and opposition leader Peter Dutton. Now, in his speech to roughly 500 delegates at the Fullerton Hotel in Sydney yesterday, he focused a lot on foreign policy, and Dave Sharma, a former ambassador, also has been quite vocal in recent weeks in support of Israel with this latest conflict happening in the Middle East. Also on Sky News earlier, Dan Tehan, the Shadow Immigration Minister, had this reaction to Dave Sharma's win and return to politics.
Well, he'll walk into the Senate as someone with vast experience when it comes to foreign policy in particular, but also having been a member of the House. He'll make an immediate contribution, and I really welcome Dave coming back to the Parliament.
And of course, a lot of people know who Dave Sharma is down here in Bondi. We've been asking a few people about their thoughts on his return to politics as well.
I am very happy to see Dave's return to the politics. I think he is a highly competent man, particularly on the foreign relations front. And I just think he's a decent human being.
Yes, I don't know him well, but I've met him a couple of times. He seems like a good guy with integrity. I didn't vote for him last election, but I wish him well in his new endeavour.
Pete, Mr Sharma is entitled to hold the Senate seat for the next 2 terms.
Kenny, thank you. Let's bring in Dave Sharma now. Dave, good to see you. Congratulations, first of all. How do you feel about your return to Parliament, this time the Senate?
Good morning, Peter. Great to join you. Look, it's to say, it might be a cliche, but it's true. It's a real privilege and an honour to be entrusted with this responsibility on behalf of my party, the Liberal Party, but also, of course, to represent the whole people of New South Wales in the federal parliament. It's a great privilege, and it's one I'll take very seriously.
So have you heard from Peter Dutton yet? Because he was all for Z.
I have heard from Peter Dutton. I've heard from Peter Dutton, Susan Lee, the Deputy Leader, a number of other people. Look, you know, I've got a good relationship with Peter. I've got a good relationship with all of my federal parliamentary colleagues. And, you know, I always believe in these sorts of pre-selections, you're putting yourself forward and you're on your own merits and your own terms, and you're asking delegates or voters or whoever they might be to support you as a candidate. So, look, references are important, but ultimately I was happy to get there under my own steam, and I'm sure I'll have a great relationship with all of my colleagues in Canberra. Yeah,
so your selection means all 4 New South Wales senators are all metro-based now. So what do you say to claims that the regions have been forgotten about?
Well, I'd say, first of all, that just as when I was an ambassador overseas, I represented all of Australia, not just the cities and not just particular states. As a senator for New South Wales, I will represent all of New South Wales. I'll travel around all of New South Wales. I'll represent constituents across New South Wales. And look, I'd like to put my office not in the CBD of Sydney. I don't quite know where it'll be yet, and I'll need to have those discussions with the Department of Parliamentary Services and others. But I'm conscious that we need to be a party that is, you know, communicating broadly across the state, and I'll do my utmost to help make sure that's the case.
So ideally, where would you want to put your office if it was your choice?
Well, look, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us as a party in the growing parts of Sydney, in southwestern Sydney and in western Sydney, where communities are changing, new communities are arriving. It's where Sydney is growing demographically and, you know, in terms of infrastructure. It's an exciting part of Sydney. So everything else being equal, I'd like to be based out there.
Okay. Others, and this is a bit more criticism that's emerged, Dave, others have suggested this isn't the Liberal Party looking forward. A man has replaced a woman, and it's someone from the past. So how do you respond to that?
Well, I'd say, first of all, on the first point, look, we as a party need to be as diverse as modern Australia is. And yes, that's on gender in part, but we've now got from New South Wales 2 female and 2 male senators representing the Liberal Party. But it's also about other forms of diversity. Now, I'm unashamedly an Australian of Indian heritage. My father was an Indian, ethnically Indian migrant to Australia. I wear that proudly, and Indian Australians are now our second largest overseas-born community in Australia, but we don't see many of them in the Parliament, either in the lower house or the upper house, and I'm thrilled to be one of the first of them.
Okay, and just finally on Israel, Dave, I mean, you've certainly become more visible over the past 4 to 6 weeks because of the war and sharing your insights and your expertise, and particularly on this program as well. There is a push this morning from Hamas to extend the truce by 2 to 4 days, which would allow a further exchange of hostages. Do you think this should be supported?
Absolutely, I think it should be supported. Very importantly, the release of hostages needs to accompany any further extension of the truce or the pause in hostilities, and it will also provide an opportunity for more humanitarian assistance to get into Gaza, which I support. But it's very important. I mean, we've seen the immense relief on families' faces seeing some of those hostages released from Israel, but there's still, somewhere like 180 being held there who've now been there for close to 50 days. They should be released as quickly as possible.
Does a further extension, though, simply allow Hamas to regroup?
Well, I think certainly any ceasefire allows Hamas to regroup, but Israel's taken the decision, and I think any state in its position would, that it is prepared to extend the ceasefire provided additional hostages are being released. And ultimately that's a decision Israel needs to take in its own sovereign interest. But I think we in the international community certainly have an interest in all the hostages being released as quickly as possible. I mean, if you want this war to end, the way it ends is Hamas releases all the hostages now, not just in tranches, not just in dribbles, releases all of them now and surrenders its military leadership. And then we will see a loss of civilian life on both sides, and we'll see this war brought to an end. I don't think that's likely to happen, but those who want an end to this conflict should be seeking that.
Yeah, surrendering its military leadership. That will be interesting to see whether that can be achieved. That's the long run anyway. Dave, congratulations again. Welcome back, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me on, Peter.